Come on. Just got back to the city, been a long time gone. Days have been away too many, missing more than home. And I call up my old friends, shut the town down around 3 a.m. Like the good old days, like the good old days, I'm heading your way. Get on your dancing shoes, I got some moves for you. You show me hair fall down, I'll show you off downtown. We got this night on lock, make up for time we lost. Cross off that been a while, can't wait to crash and smile. Tonight I'm back in town, spent enough time hotel thinking all about you. And right now I'm about 10 miles out from a deja vu.
It's the On Stage Podcast with Chris Ruppert. Welcome to another podcast with Canadian musician Marshall Dane. And apparently he uses sign language to convey his musical message to the deaf. Now, he's the son of a preacher and middle brother of 6, and I'm actually youngest brother of 7. And you were raised as a minister. So what's going on here?
That's a loaded question. I'm a musician now. The short answer to that is that I was raised to be a minister. My father's a minister. And I spent the first 20 years of my life going through basically like a theocracy school to try and, understand all things, church. And I kind of did it, but I had this other feeling inside that was really pulling me. And unfortunately, where I grew up and how I grew up, you weren't allowed to be a professional musician or even entertain that road of desire. That was the issue. And unfortunately, there was such a conflict with the church that I was involved, like that my family was involved with, and that feeling inside me that the only way for me to go and explore this thing inside that was clearly a lot stronger than the pull to stay in the ministry. I had to go down that road and kind of put my family aside for a little while, which was really, really brutal. But there's a certain amount of, it's kind of like fasting. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And so even though I had to space between my family and I had a chance to open up, grow, do the thing I needed to do. And then when we found our way back to each other, our relationship was, it was a different kind. It was, it's still, parent and child, but I was, I don't know, I had gone through a lot. So I think I used to always kind of look this way towards my parents, and all of a sudden we found ourselves eye to eye, and it was really, really cool. So anyway, and now here we are. I'm a musician, and that musicianship has turned into a life of art, basically, which I didn't know was all inside me, but here it is now.
Well, Marshall, your music is very good, and very well, really awesome. And how do you fit your belief, if you have a belief in God, how do you fit that in your music now?
Well, I definitely have a belief, and a belief in, God. When I remember traveling to the Arctic, and when I got out there, it wasn't about seeing an iceberg. It was about the space of natural, stuff. And when I look at, mountains and the wind and nature, I see God all over the place. I mean, God's within everything. So I still have that belief system, and it's still very strong. I still have a very strong spirituality, and that permeates my music. I never used to think it did, but then I look back at, this rain is like holy water, finally washing my troubles away, there's lots of different references to things that would probably be dominant in my upbringing, and probably many other people, if you kind of grew up in that same era or that same area where religion was strong in the household. then, there's no way for it, I think, not to get inside the lyrics. And I love that. I love bringing spirituality to lyrics. A little bit of a, you're not alone, or a little bit of a, it's not just you, there's something else, that gives you that strength to pull through.
I understand that perfectly. So, Marshall, now that you're a Canadian singer-songwriter, recording artist, and a 5-time Male Artist of the Year nominee. So you write country songs that across genres and bridge the gap between mainstream pop, rock, and new country. Before we move on, can you just give a little bit of background? I mean, you shared that story about how you had become a minister's child, the middle of 6. Um, wait, am I right? You were
Middle of
the
7, but there
middle.
were 6 on either side, or 3
Yeah,
on either
that's right.
side.
Can you give us a little bit of background of who is Marshall Dane, so our audience will know?
Well, grew up in St. Catharines. I was very much a hard worker. Like, I always like to have jobs. So from early on, I was always like, whether it be a paper route or cleaning my stepfather's, polishing his shoes. And I picked up a gig at McDonald's. I did a little job there. I worked at a jean machine for a couple of months because I wasn't that good at it. And then I really wanted to work in a bank like my mom. So I got what they call a co-op through school, and I worked in a bank, and I turned that into a full-time job because I had heard that if you get a co-op, you can sometimes get a job out of it. So I made sure I did everything that was, at least helpful. So I got a gig out of it. I stayed there for about a year or so. And then I moved to Toronto from St. Catharines and decided to get into investment banking and stuff like that because I had this other background in banking stuff. And again, I wasn't really good at it. I was okay. I understood it, but I wasn't motivated. And I'm a firm believer in doing what you really love to do. If you get really proficient at it, at some point, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be proficient at it. At some point, you will be the person that desires to stay up. When everybody else is asleep, you'll be there by yourself, whether it be writing a book, whether it be painting a car or a picture in your living room, whether it be crunching numbers because you just love accounting. Whatever it is, if you love it, you'll be up till 4 a.m. doing it, or, to the wee hours. And I loved music that much. And so of all the little jobs I did, I was always, closing my office door and typing songs. I knew I wasn't really fit. I would go out to see a client and I would stop at a club to try and get a gig. I was clearly more motivated by music. And so I just decided that the workforce thing wasn't right for me. I found a gig each month for a couple of months that was sustainable for my income at the time. I kept my bills low. And I just got into two gigs a week, turned into 3 gigs a week, turned into 5 gigs a week. So next thing you know, I was doing more music than I was anything else. And then I never looked back because I'm not good at sticking to schedule. I like to go with how I feel.
So you're like a rogue, a rogue musician.
Yeah, it makes sense the way my life has turned out. Exactly, it makes sense.
You're the type of person that would walk into a bar and with a guitar and start playing without anybody, allowing you to. So,
it's not a do first, ask permit or ask forgiveness later. It's just like the other day I was out walking with my girlfriend and I heard a nice song and it was in the middle of a crowded walkway and I just held her when instead of her walking forward, I just pulled her hand and she turned around and I pulled her close and we just danced. And we danced like a minute in the middle of a walkway. Like, I mean, we weren't holding people up from walking by, but in that moment, I was just like, this is what we feel like doing. Let's just do this. So there's a little bit of a not a regard for, oh my goodness, how does this look? I'm not really concerned. I mean, not really concerned how people view it. I am, but I'm not.
I like that spontaneity. You and your girlfriend suddenly dancing. That's what makes a good relationship, as long as communication is involved as well.
Yeah, I mean, I told her, I was like, hey, come here, we're dancing. It was communication. It was a tug. I'm just kidding.
Let's go back to the bank job to say that you must have had millions of dollars run through your fingers, or were you just a teller?
I worked as a teller. That's how I started off. And I mean, at that time, there was probably a good chunk of thousands of dollars coming through. But most of that stuff wasn't cash money. Most of that stuff is all just transactional. It's through accounts. It's transferring something from one facility to another. It's signing documents. To me, that's boring as anything. I mean, I like counting cash. I like counting money. I do not like crunching numbers. So me working in the bank system was kind of cool, but I would go do a gig and get, 150 bucks, and I'm sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'd be like, yeah, cash. So I mean, I like that kind of part of it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was money that was come through, but nothing that money doesn't excite me per se. Counting it does, but looking at it doesn't.
How did you incorporate those job skills into the music that you have thus far? Were you able to incorporate it as, were you able to bring it into your job as a musician?
100%, brother. I run my ship. I have to be able to run my ship completely alone. I've ran my ship most of the years by myself. I have a best friend that helps me now on a lot of administration things, and that takes weight off, but I still know how to do the administration things. I remember when I had to first, musicians aren't good at taxes, and I'm still not. I still don't like doing it. And I still procrastinate it till I have to, but I know how to do it. And for all the years, there was years when, you're making cash and people are like, you shouldn't record it and whatever else. And I'm like, I don't know how to do taxes, and I don't even know how to do a business. So I'm just going to record it all. And I literally did, from the $2 for gum to the, to the last cents of something added HST to it. I mean, I just made sure I had it all. There was no gray area. So that skill set, I think, coming from a business background, that helped me to just kind of get in, organize. I can schedule stuff. I can schedule tours. And I don't know if I'd have all those skills necessarily honed like I did when I, because I work for these other companies. That just helped me to be a little bit more organized and appreciate what it takes to do the business end of things.
And to be more focused on what you're doing, because you never know that you don't want it to, in the end, bite you in the buttons. They contact you and say that we just suddenly found out there's a few mistakes you made or whatever. It's good to have integrity in your job, especially in
100%.
music too. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm looking at this, that you have a level 3 sign language and an active licensed drone pilot. What's the whole American Sign Language all about?
Sign language started in my life when I was a child. My mother signed when we were kids. She helped to interpret my father's sermons to these 2 deaf dudes in our church at the time. The one deaf guy I was fairly close with. He was a family friend, and you couldn't understand a word he said, but you could have fun with him. Like, we were kids, and we'd always have fun with him. So even though I couldn't understand anything he said, I was comfortable with him. In 2017, I was traveling. I don't know if you ever heard of a place in the Atlantic Ocean, on the east coast of Canada, about 300 clicks out. There's a little place called Sable Island, and it's a magical, mystical land where people speak about it, like Farley Mowat books and Margaret Atwood books. They speak about this magical land of horses that roam around. And I've been there. And I say that with all the gratitude of a life, because the other person, some of the other people, was like Alex Trebek was with me on that trip from Jeopardy. That level of income is what gets to that place. I was hired as a musician and a expedition team member to help bring Alex and his family to the shore. And while I was with these people, there was a woman that discussed her life on the very last day. We were only out for 3 days sailing, and then we came back. And Alex, all these other people had fantastical stories of their life. And this woman, she's like, oh, my story is no good. My story is not exciting. Anyways, and the short version of that is that this woman, she started off as a skier, becoming an athlete, a professional athlete, broke her legs. So she became a doctor for athletes who get injured. And while taking a summer school job in between semesters of becoming a doctor for athletes, she discovered that 8 deaf children who were 10 years old were being left in a classroom with no instructor, nobody to speak ASL, and she changed her life. And there I was with Alex Trebek on the other side of me, and this woman right beside me, and like famous people all around. And this woman's story had me crying. And I thought, I'm simple like you. Like, as far as you were just following an artistic dream to be a skier, I was just following an artistic dream to be a musician. And here we are in this crazy place with people that have incomes that can afford it and we cannot. And yet your story is the most beautiful one I heard. Within 2 weeks, I started my first class. Within 1 week of hearing that story, I was enrolled. And within 4 days, I was back home. And within 1 hour of hearing her story, I went straight to my expedition leader and I said, do you ever have deaf people come out here and ask to be on this kind of extreme trip? And he said, no. And I said, have you ever had anybody that works with the company understand sign language and know that they can interpret so that that opportunity could be offered in the future? He said, no. And I was like, I can do this.
Wow.
Period. And that's it. Since 2017, I've been going every week, every Wednesday until March of 2022. I finally graduated. There are no more classes. I can take, fun courses to keep signing, but I've taken as many advanced level classes all the way. There's like level 1 and then level 2, level 3, and then there's advanced classes and stuff. I've done all that, and I just love it. I just love deaf people. I mean, people are people. There's idiots everywhere, and there's beautiful people everywhere. But the deaf culture, or the way of communicating, is a very special way of communicating. Brother, you have to stare into somebody's eyes. You don't sit there and sign with somebody and talk on your phone at the same time. The minute you look away from their face, you are disconnected from the conversation. You might as well go like this. And that to me is awesome. It's such a cool way to have to be engaged. And it's very cool. It's very direct too. Very neat.
Would you consider yourself, not bilingual, but sign language lingual? Would you consider yourself more
like fluent in sign language?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm slow. I'm not fast, but I can speak the language and I can understand the language, and I can ask for clarification when I don't understand. I guess it would be like, do you speak Italian enough to go to Italy, to the heart of the city, and know that you can at least get to the bathroom, get dinner, and find out where your hotel is? I can do that. That's not a problem. I don't sign and speak at the same time, but yeah. And I guess it would be, at this point, bilingual as far as English and sign language would be my 2 fullest languages.
That's interesting. Does it matter whether a person mouths everything that they sign, or why do I don't want to say deaf people, hearing impaired people, why do they like this? Why do they mouth it?
Yeah, and deaf people is fine too, by the way. There's nothing anti about that. That's who they are. But now, when I say that, that's usually deaf with a capital D. As if you were going to say somebody's Canadian or somebody is European or Jewish, you'd put a capital D on deaf. They're deaf. But now, said that, different words in sign language require a mouth shape, and the face is grammar. So in other words, if I say I love you, I'm like, I love. Or I could say, I really love you.
That makes sense.
Like, it's in here. So how's your day today? It's okay. It doesn't look like it's okay. Your face doesn't say it's okay. How's your day today? Amazing. You can see it. Your face is great. Everything's great. Whereas if somebody says, how's your day today? Okay. Well, right here tells you it's not. So you have the right to look and say, doesn't look okay. What's the matter? So sometimes you mouth words, certain words, like if something is large. Now, this is just a basic one. And one of the first things you would ever learn in beginning sign language is that the mouth expression is cha. So like C-H-A, cha. Why? Because small or little things have an ooh, like you would for a baby, like ooh. Or is it big? Cha.
Wow.
Ooh. Ooh, where do I go? Up the street. Is it far? Ooh, it's right there. Oh, it's right there. Or how far up the street is it? Boom. You got to go all the way down there and all the way over there. So the mouth actually does mean a whole lot. And sometimes you're actually saying the word, like, you know, favorite or preferred, you know, like you might just lip it so that they'd be like, oh, he said prefer instead of favorite, that kind of thing.
Do you have a sign language interpreter at all your concerts?
No.
Oh.
Just not that dang lucky. It's the girl that I'm lucky enough to get is one of few. And by few, I mean on one hand, not including the thumb, that's what you got in Canada that can do what she does. So for instance, we're in the process of being contracted to perform at the International Deaf and Blind Conference. So this year it's being held in Canada in Ottawa, and I've been asked to perform there. But the requirement is I have to have an ASL interpreter. And you'd think that with a whole deaf community putting on an event, they would say, we're going to provide you with one.
No.
You got to have your own. And it's got to be somebody that knows what you're doing and can still ad lib, but they have to kind of know. And so I'm finding it it's a challenge. Not that it's not a challenge. I'm finding it to be a challenge to get someone as great as Vera, who normally signs with me when we're doing other events, because that is a very specific skill set. But there are people out there, and we are lucky that we are finding them. So we get them when we can. And if I know sure enough in advance that accessibility to the front of the stage is possible, like when we did the CNE this year, I asked my interpreter to come out one of the days, and we had access right to the close front of the stage, and we had lights, and we made sure that it was. So as long as I know ahead of time, I can try and book it and add it in.
Well, that's pretty good. Obviously, yeah, you have your own interpreter there, which is good. Yeah, if I want to take sign language course, actually, I know a few things like good morning, and this one. If you know what that means.
I'm thinking like a button.
No, it's it's a bad word, but it's like putting the. Anyway, I'm not going to say anything because I may have to edit that out. But that's very interesting. Yeah. So if I wanted to start learning sign language, like level 1, like you did, do I do like the YouTube sign language taught on YouTube, or do I have to take an actual course? What do you recommend?
I would recommend a course. And the reason I say that is just because for the nominal investment, I mean, I think a course like a 3-month or 2.5-month, whatever it is, every week course is probably somewhere in the $150 range, I think. And when you spend a little bit of money like that, if it's tight, you're going to think twice about it and make sure you really want it. So you will tend to go to those classes. If you've got all the money in the world and you just, I'll sign up, you're still probably more likely to go to the class and learn something, even if you're just kind of taking it easy, not worried about scoring super high, just learning for some association. I still would take a course. If you want to see what your interest level is, for sure, YouTube, basic ASL. The difference is that on a YouTube thing, your interaction will be not, it's one-sided. And so you're either going to learn what they teach you and hopefully have an interest in what they taught you and an application. Somebody can say to you, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or you can be in a classroom and they're like, 1, that way is wrong. This way, that's correct. 1.
Wow.
2. Not 2, but 2. Like, so they'll be right there. And when you say, why is your hand turned for 6? And they'll explain that to you. They'll describe that from here, you can't see it, but from here, you can see what that visually is and, whatever else in their explanations. So there's definitely a benefit behind having instruction with a teacher. And I did a lot of it online.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did a lot of it online, and therefore if somebody's a little bit nervous about the online Zoom version of it, it's still very good. I mean, everything comes down to the teacher, but you can still learn.
I'll check it out. I'm actually a tenor, and I've learned to sing Italian, German, French, but I may not know the language. I know some signs, but I don't know the language to be able to communicate. I wish I did. So basically, I should maybe find out a course. I should like become as fluent as you in sign language. Might help me because I meet many deaf people even once to come on the bus and they hand these cards to you and said, I can't get a job and all that stuff. So imagine being able to grab that card or whatever and just communicate with them in sign language, and I love to do that. That's my main thing. I'm actually thinking of getting a course in that. But
I would encourage it, brother, especially if you find that you're in a situation that comes up more frequently than not. It's a beautiful thing, Imagine you could talk to just, I don't know, like just somebody that you didn't think you could communicate with. I don't know, a 2-year-old that's sitting there on the bus. And imagine if the conversation was real, like you could actually get inside that little kid's head. You hear all kinds of silly things. And
right.
same thing
Yeah.
with anybody, whether it be any language. But I feel like deaf is something that people don't quite, it's just not the one that they reach for as their first new language. Maybe French, maybe Italian, maybe Spanish. But there's and I've had that scenario where someone has handed me the card and I'm like, you sign? And next thing you know, we're talking. And that's good.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. If I'd known about this, I would have got my own interpreter to record this podcast, and then after editing, add that person. You know how they have in the closed caption? I love it.
It's easy. You just send somebody a clip of your cast, or you can send it to them even after the fact. You could send it to somebody and say, would you mind giving me a little video of you interpreting this? And I'll put it up in the closed caption, like in the top corner of my screen. I've had that done for a few videos, and it's great. I mean, the people that really care for that will let you know that they're really appreciative that you did that.
I might do that eventually, especially for this one. But that's a whole new level. I never even thought of that. I knew that people saying, well, you got to put in different languages in the so people can see it in different languages.
Yeah.
Like I think it's called captioning.
Yeah.
Which YouTube does automatically with English, and sometimes the English is off. I like to take, like I mentioned, sign language, but it's always the finger spelling, which is going to be like difficult because the word psychology, the word psychologist, pharmacy, anti-establishmentarianism, all those other large words you have to finger spell, which is pretty good because they go really quick. So that I would have.
There are signs for pharmacy and pharmacist. I can't remember if it's not that. It's something to do with an RX, I believe. The RX name or whatever that stands.
Yes.
Right. So in sign language, you wouldn't necessarily have to spell out pharmacy. You could just, and I'm not too sure what the thing is, but I'm sure it's something like RX store kind of thing. They're like, oh, prescription store. Yeah.
So what's this whole life being the licensed drone pilot all about? And how do you incorporate all your creative assets into this one stunning and exciting passion? Is this something you use for your music videos, or is this something you do separate on the side?
That is something that developed during COVID. I didn't know anything about drones before COVID. And by March 2022 or March 2020, I went to Walmart and I bought a little $18 toy. And I thought, I'm going to try and fly this drone around my apartment. I flew it around, dumped it in the toilet. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And it stopped working. So I took it back, got another one. And I got excited about it. Somebody else said they had a cheap or a good camera one, but it was a crappy drone. And they said I could have it. So I took it. I got it up in the air. The thing fell down out of the air. It was like some weird helicopter-y thing. And it never worked well, but I looked at the footage off of it and I thought, well, that footage looks amazing. Imagine if I could make my own little videos and put my own songs to it. I wonder if I could make something cinematic. So I played with that toy and like a couple of little $20 toys for a couple of months while researching what makes cinematic drone footage, or what makes drone footage cinematic. And after I read and learned a whole bunch about panning this way, panning that way, working as if you're a crane, not flying around like this and doing loops and zoops and going around stuff. Any fun person can do that. Anybody with an exhilaration for, oh, this is great, you can do that. But to fly that same machine with precision, accuracy, and intent, and how would Scorsese film that creep over the side of the cliff to reveal that home where the thing is about to happen? He's not gonna. He's gonna come over. He's gonna reveal. They come up behind the mountain and reveal that scene in the background. So once I got into that, I started researching drones. I spent 2020. I finally bought a drone, like a decent one, and I made $150 just as somebody gave me $150 for filming their property. I was like, I didn't expect that. I was just getting practice, but thank you. And then somebody else gave me another couple $100 for filming their property. And I'm like, again, I didn't ask for it. And I'm like, I wonder if I could make a couple $100 once in a while doing drone filming. So I went out and I started making a couple $100 on some things. But then my drone crashed one day and I didn't know how to fix it. So I was going back to Toronto and I was sending the drones in, or sending the drone back. And finally I thought, I really want to get into the kind where you put a goggle on and you can fly wherever. You can fly through a house and you can fly through a barn, and you don't have to be standing there looking at your drone flying. You can be outside the barn looking into the sunset with your goggles on, but you could be inside the barn flying. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And I got into that in 2021. By the end of 2021, I had built 2 drones from scratch.
Wow.
I bought pieces online. I went to a store in Toronto. I got some advice from different people. When I got hung up on something, I'd ask for people. But I've never soldered in my life until 2020, actually till 2021. And within 6 months, I was soldering micro flight controller boards, putting motors on them, getting electronic sensor controls for the motor, like just putting all kinds of different things in it and thinking, wow, I'm not a techie guy at all. I've never looked at guitar pedals and ripped them apart, or guitars and opened them off the back and looked at the circuitry. I could care less about it. But with drones, I could sit there and YouTube it for 4 hours, 5 hours, and sit there and do niggly little soldering work and troubleshooting. And I have no problem with that. Like I have all the desire in the world to learn that. So again, I try and take on hobbies that I can turn into maybe small little profits for myself, but they have to be passion projects, because once they're like, I don't know if you've been watching online. I started woodworking in November because I had a tour cancel. And because the tour canceled, I had time. And because I had time and I couldn't fly the drones, and I wasn't out traveling doing sign language or shows, I thought, I wonder if I'm any good with wood. And next thing you know, I'm here. Hang on. I just made this 2 days ago. Check this out.
Wow.
Now this is dusty because I just got a bunch of drywall in my house at the moment. But in November 2022, I've never touched wood before. By January 2023, I'm making, I haven't even got the right light on this, but I'm making charcuterie boards cast in resin.
Yeah.
I guess you can kind of see that.
I can see that. Yeah. I've seen that done online. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100%. I didn't even know anything about it. And I wasn't even interested in casting resin. I was just interested in making a piece of wood look beautiful. But
where do you get the resin from?
These days I ordered online. Like, this is a chunk of thrown away wood that I've just brushed and burned. And it's just gorgeous. It's just a 2x4 that somebody tossed out after they did some renovations. And I'm having a time just making wood look beautiful.
The founder of creativity. Yeah.
I only use that, by the way, founder of creativity, because it came up automatically when it said like add your name title in, and I was like, well, you got founder of creativity there. I'll just keep that. It's
Well,
not
country
wrong.
musician would be good. Just kidding.
I guess that would have worked.
That's amazing. So woodworking, and then sign language, and then flying a drone. Wow, what else is on your roster?
I
Skydiving?
hope I hope nothing else for a while. I hope I just get to live within these. Well, here, let me show you. I built this, and this don't look like much. You can't
Oh,
really, again, I don't have perfect lighting up here, but there's a piloting camera up here, and I don't know. This is the
did you
first
build
one
that
I
with it?
built.
You said you did you get the kit online?
No, no. All these different pieces. I mean, I got a GoPro up here, but all these different parts and pieces, I had to get all the pieces first, and there's no
That's
instruction
amazing.
book. There's no, it's just you have to know that the car needs an engine, the car needs tires, the car needs wheels, it needs an axle, it needs a computer, and you need a steering wheel. And like, you know, the basic things it needs. It needs seats. So you just buy all the things, and you're like, how do I attach these? But they're not
You
Volkswagen seats for the Volkswagen chassis. It's general chassis, general seats. Find a way to make them fit.
Yeah, wow, you never even took a course on electronics or anything. You just figured it out on your own. Whoa, that blows my mind.
Well, I mean, I can't fix your computer, but I can fix your drone.
You really inspire me to take more hold of my hobbies and my interests instead of just, you know, working and doing this. I should add like learning sign language, maybe learning to play another instrument because I only know how to sing. I wanted to pick up the violin. I want to pick up the flute at one point and recorder, play it professionally. But all I just love singing, and I never thought of anything. But you've actually really inspired me to maybe not maybe doing making a drone, but I've had a sudden interest, and people will know this, including my family and subscribers on this. But I have an interest in building robots, like just having like building a robot and having it move.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, nothing elaborate like Bicentennial or something you'll find in that game Detroit Become Human, but a robot like I played with that stuff when I was a computer programmer, and I built things with a talking parrot, and it was a pizza program, and you would say with cheese and go with cheese, and then you have to program that in there to listen. Um, but the voice and everything was not up to par, which means that it couldn't really, like, I don't know what AI is like right now, but some words it just didn't get that it.
Mm,
You would say a pear, it would say hair where, appear, a pair,
right.
a pair. So it must be pretty more advanced now. So what is it that you would like to change about the music business if you could?
I don't want to change anything about the music business, brother. And I mean, I want to change things about my music business, but not about the music business in general. I hear people have very opinionated, and I mean, I'm opinionated, don't get me wrong, but the music business is its own animal. It's its own wave. It's its own community. It's its own club. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a part of that club? Do you like clubs? Are you a club guy? Do you even go to the club? Yeah, you bought a membership, but are you going to go? You get the timeshare, but are you going to fly there? Really? I'm not
Wow.
that guy. I don't go to the timeshare. I don't stick to schedule. So anyway, when it comes to the industry, I guess my point is I've tried to get into the industry on purpose. I got into it by accident. Like I mean, I was happy playing music in the clubs, and I was in that industry. I got into the recording music business, and that got me into the recording industry. And once in, I tried to appease what that industry is. So if it's a club, I tried to do what the club expected of me. And I did all those things, and I could never get the attention of the presidents of the club. They'd walk past you
Wow.
in the hallway, and I'd scrub the walls and make sure I was doing the floors good. And, Mr. President of the club would walk by, and I'm like, hi, I'm really working hard over here on this thing so that your music business is cool. And I'm really holding up a part over here. And they just walk past. I mean, once in a while, they're like, hey, that's really cool that you're doing something over there. Way to go. But that's what the industry is. And I'm less about getting off of the working force to go hang with that guy as he walks by and say, well, what if I just tag along with you and hang out here? Then I could be a little bit more in the club and see more than just over here working it hard, fixing the floors as you walk around. I'm not that guy. I'll go to help that guy push his car out if it gets stuck in the snow.
Wow.
But to follow that industry person around to try and be my best friend so that I could be part of the group and the club doesn't interest me. I'm more excited about, hey man, you guys all do this thing over here. I'm going to go over here in the woods. I'm going to write a couple of songs. I'm going to fly some drones. I'm going to build something I've never built before. I'm going to get excited about something inside my heart. And then I'm going to do something else. And then I'm going to put a song out. And when I put a song out, it's going to be a culmination of all these things that make me excited over here. And that's what comes out of me. Instead of working inside the group, trying to be in here, trying to make projects and art that these people will like so that they will notice that I'm really trying to be in their club. And I've done that. And it's never served me well inside. It was neat to go out there and fight hard to see if I could win against the whole thing. But that's not really it's not a battle. It's not something you win. It's just something that is, and something that I is, something that you is. And again, this goes back to something that you mentioned earlier. Maybe you'll find some benefit in this phrase, because I surely did. And this is what I've been doing for the last I've been doing it my whole life, but I've been really aware of it the last 6 months. And that is, I'm serving the 8-year-old inside of me and the 80-year-old inside of me. And basically the point that I heard was, if you're going to there's only 2 people in this world you got to make happy. It's not God. It's not Jesus Christ. It's not your mother, your father, your brother, your son, your daughter. It's not the law. It's not the government. It's the 8-year-old version of you and the 80-year-old version of you. If you can look at those 2 people and say, is the 8-year-old inside of me pretty happy? Does it feel like it's having fun and doesn't know about the world yet and just is having a good time exploring things that are interesting, putting shit on your chocolate on your face or whatever it is you're doing? And is the 80-year-old also balanced, older, wise, gone through everything, would throw out half the crap that you put in your head saying that it's not important? Is the 80-year-old happy with me too? And if I can make both those 2 satisfied, okay, I'm not going out to make $100,000 this year. That's not my goal. But that's okay, because I was out doing some woodwork and the 8-year-old in me loved it. And the 80-year-old said, this is good work, brother. You're doing fine work. Keep working on that. That's good work. I don't care if you make $100,000. Do some good work today. Good job. That's what that old guy would say. So anyway, and that's kind of how I view the industry. The industry has bills to pay, cars payments to make, children that have to go to school, cottages, all the things that everybody else has wishes or bills for. And who am I to say, let me in your club and let me be a part of it? I'd rather not do that. I'd rather say, listen, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to work on some cool music. If you guys notice, that's wicked, because I'm way over here. And I'll be super stoked that you notice anything I'm doing. And I'd love to share it with you. Invite me over and I'll come over and share my stuff with you. As opposed to, hey, I'm the big industry. You're a little guy over there. You should come over here and, kiss my butt until I say it's okay. No. Like I said, I'll push your car out if you're stuck in the snow. I'm not going to kiss your butt so I can be in your club.
Until you find out that it's Sting that owns that car.
Even then, if it was Sting that owned that car, I bet you, and I would push him out of the snow in his car, but Sting would probably be so gracious, he'd be like, yo, dude, can I buy you some lunch? Right? Regular Joe, like a regular dude. So, yeah.
Well, you're better man than I am, Marshall, and you're very inspirational. So I have a lot to think about after this podcast. And thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Wow. So let me ask you about talking about coming here and playing a little music, and I'll do this thing over here. What is your creative process like? Like I've talked to many musicians, and they said they write a title and they write the song around it, or they write the lyrics and write melody around it. Others will have a melody and they'll write music and lyrics around it. What do you do? Do you actually play the music and write the lyrics at the same time? What's your musical creative process?
So I think all those things that you mentioned are exactly the processes. I think it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. You could have I got a line in my head. Somebody somewhere is holding a picture of somebody they used to know. And the love that remains in that old worn out frame is a love that'll never let go. Oops. So it starts with a lyric. And I don't know where the rest of it goes, but I know that that's part of it. And so then you sit down, you're like, somebody somewhere is holding a picture. Somebody they used to know. And the love that remains in that old worn out frame. Like you just kind of humming out. Is a
That's
love
wonderful.
that will never let go.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You know? Or you start with, like there's something else we were working on the other week. Oh, how's it go? If I too long, tell me I'm wrong. The same old lies go on and on.
Wow.
Can we get you someone to forget? Like, so you just you mouth it out depending on what it is. And I got a little line called "Hug the Cactus," and I'm like, where am I going to fit that? Is that a song title? Is it a line in a song? Man, until you at the door, maybe hug the. I don't know how you put "Hug the Cactus" in a song, but. So just depending on what it is. Other times I'm sitting at that piano and just going, and I'm like, oh my God, this kind of chord progression is cool. What is that? And I'm like, oh, I've used that all the time, but just not this tempo or something. And then something triggers like, and one thing I don't do anymore
is wear the cowboy hat.
What's that?
Wear the cowboy hat. That's what you don't do anymore.
I got it upstairs. It's upstairs. I used to keep them down here, but no, I was in a writing session about a year and a half ago, and somebody said, oh, we can't do that song because that's not cool at radio, and radio won't play that. And I'm like, that's what I don't do anymore. I absolutely don't throw out desire and creativity for structure. And if you need to write a song for a soundtrack and you need to write a song for an album with a vibe or very specific content, then yeah, you've got a job to do, and your job is a writer, a songwriter, and you're going to write that song. So that's very specific, and that's a skill set you got to have to do that. The way I like to do things is kind of like my life. When you feel the desire and the song kind of comes to you, go for it. There was a tune that I was writing with a buddy of mine, and my buddy didn't really like this track. He thought it was really corny. Never seen you here before. Wait. Never seen you here before. Would have noticed someone like you. Pretty face and long brown hair. Baby, I don't mean to stare. What the hell you doing here? And my buddy was like, oh, it sounds like an old song, and it sounds like a crooner song, and it sounds like it was written 40 years ago. And I'm like, and you don't think that it's magic that here we are in 2022 in a room not 40 years ago writing this when everybody else is writing something else? You don't think that's super cool? I do. I absolutely do. If you think that sounds like an old, who would that be? Not Travis,
I think it's a Paul Brandt. You sounded like a Paul Brandt song.
Yeah, like it just sounds like
Lucas
oh
Bryan.
dang. It's an old guy that not Conway Twitty, but anyway, but like one of those older Merle Haggard,
Oh.
100%. It could be a Merle Haggard tune, and yet, anyway. So I just don't write that stuff off. I look at that like, hey man, that's a scrap piece of wood that could be beautiful. Make it beautiful if it's beautiful. And maybe all you do is you make that scrap piece of wood and it only ever becomes this little beautiful thing. Okay. I'm fine with that. And then the next piece you make might end up being this gorgeous charcuterie board river table.
Yeah.
And that's the one that gets you signed. And then you make another one that's just a little tiny one and it's just cute and it's good.
Wow.
And it's okay. And you keep that on the shelf as that's a beautiful piece. As opposed to every time, big charcuterie board, gotta be the big thing, gotta be the winner. If it ain't the winner, you're not good. Next.
Well, what I used to do is I used to build models.
Oh, cool.
From a company Ertl, I used to build like old cars. I'm a big classic car fan, and I would go to the point where I would paint it and everything, take pictures of it. And then I used to buy. There used to be, well, they named this. I don't want to say old folks home, but this old folks home. They call it Leisure World, but there used to be a hobby shop by the name of Leisure World, and I used to go in there, and I used to build clocks using old CDs, or like you don't burn CDs or DVDs anymore. So I used to build like CD and DVD clocks with the whole clock and
Cool.
everything. So that was my hobby, and I don't know why I stopped that, because apparently it looks like I could have gotten into like electronics and building robots and stuff, but there's a lot going on. And then I followed music. I was a computer programmer. I draw, I paint. It's something I stopped doing for a while. One thing I haven't done yet, Marshall, is that I haven't learned how to write a song, because they say you have to take songwriting courses. And my dream is to write a song and to get it up on whatever. And I would like to learn just as much as you're doing charcuterie boards and drones. I just want to write a song. It's a beautiful song. It's my song. It has my title. It means something, because all songs and all music has to do with your experience. And just put it out there. Right now, I'm practicing singing online. People around the world. It's called Smooth Sing. Been doing that since 2015. I have a few on my podcast channel, but you're able to just sing cover songs with people, and others actually have been able to. Some famous musicians were on there before, and they became famous because they were discovered on Smule. But like you said, I'm not like if I have like someone on a podcast or someone I meet who says, "Yeah, he's a big, well-known music producer." Mention my name. I don't do that. I'm like, I just want to learn how to write a song, or take more vocal lessons or something. I'm like you. Like, I don't want to be noticed. I'm not expecting Sting to call me and say, "Hi, this is Sting. Is Chris there? Hi, it's Sting." But
have you tried writing a song yet?
I actually write poetry, and I know that you can take your poetry and put music to it, but to actually, I wanted to write a Christmas song for the longest time, and I started writing in 2021, so I would have the song out by Christmas 2022, and then that's gone. And yet there are people say, "Hey, I just wrote a Christmas song. How long did it take you?" 2 months. Oh, how about you? "Oh yeah, I just wrote a Christmas song. It only took a week." Oh, well, I'm still writing mine. "Oh yeah, when did you start writing it?" 2020. What? 2020, So I want to be able to learn to write songs. Like, for instance, your album, Man of the House and Great Danes Country Club. And like, I'm not saying I want to have an album out. I'm just saying I like to have enough songs. Like, to tell someone I wrote 15, 20 songs, I want them to think, wow, maybe get opportunities because, okay, you're a songwriter too. Maybe I'll just take a songwriting course, like ASL course, songwriting course. I'm not sure what to do. So that's something I would love to do.
I would encourage you. I mean, both things. I would say take a course. If you want to take a course, I bet you it would be inspiring. At the very least, you'd hope that you'd find some inspiration out of it. Even if the guy says there's fake false rhymes. Instead of saying cat, you could say bad. What? Yeah. I couldn't find my cat and I went out through the bag looking for the thing. It doesn't have to be exact rhyme, but you can, as long as it's the add to the add. And you'd be like,
Oh,
I didn't learn anything off this guy today, but there was one golden nugget. Or the guy, the person, like I took a songwriter's artist course. It wasn't to songwrite, but it was how to move through the business as a songwriter. And I thought I would just take it to see if it was going to do me any good. And I got my money out of it. I mean, it was one class, but I got inspired. I got inspired by a few things that other people said and a few things that I thought up while watching them from what they said. I was like, ooh, that gives me an idea. But I'd also encourage you, if you're wondering how to make craft dinner and you're just not too sure how to make craft dinner, but you know it's got cheese and you know it's got noodles and you've been looking at it since 2020 and it's still sitting on the stove and you're like, I think I can make this.
throw it out.
Just go and make the craft dinner. And if it sucks, that's okay, because art is subjective. And in your head, you'll be like, yeah, but I actually put a verse and I made a little chorus that's like, because I love writing all the time. And I love my podcast 9 to 5. And I love, that's your chorus. And then it goes, you got your little tiny verse and you keep going back to chorus. And you're like, I got a song. It's only 2 minutes long, but it's a song. Now I can write a second one. And then you get to your third song and you'll be like, you know what? My third song's better than my first song. Or when you get to your 15th song, you can start showing people, this is the first one I wrote. And it took me 2 years to get it going. And finally, in one day, I finished it. Because I was like, the heck with this damn song. I keep starting. I can write 2 Christmas songs. And here's the other thing, bro. You don't just have to write one Christmas song. Write one. Write one fast. Don't even think about the things that rhyme or aren't right about it. Just write it the way you think it. Don't worry about it rhyming. And then you're like, I got one done. Now you write another one. And the reason I say it like that is because in the studio, when I'm singing, my first 5, 6, 7 takes of a vocal are usually not the take, because I'm still trying to get myself psyched up into the right headspace. And then finally, I tell the producer, let me do something crazy. Let me do something that's not what we're trying to do so that I can get these dumb ideas out of my head. It's not because I don't like your ideas, producer. It's that I have dumb ideas I need to get out so that I can stick to the plan. And all of a sudden I sing a verse with all these crazy ideas. And he looks at me and he's like, that was the gold right there. And I'm like, really? Wow. Crazy stuff? He goes, yeah, a combination of where you'd like to explore and where you think is logical. They somehow met all of a sudden, as opposed to before I was trying to be conservative, just trying to write the song. And because I couldn't write it well, I got stalled and wasn't finishing it. I needed to actually finish it so that I could have the crap out of my head and write another one so I could get that crap out of my head. Then your third one, you're all of a sudden you're like, I've already tried this. I've already tried that. I bet you I could do whatever I want now. And now all of a sudden you write something that is a combination of your first 2 Christmas songs. And you're like, that's what I was trying to write the first time. Just had to get some cobwebs out first. That's all. It's just a little bit of like mat time. Why is that guy a good wrestler? Because he's got mat time. He's spent more time on that mat than the other kid. So he knows how to get through some moves. That's all a songwriting course will teach you, is when you get stuck, how do you get new ideas?
So well, that's true. That's true. You got to, it's just writing, the whole process of just writing and using cat and bad. Well, that's true. But for dog, you would use like, I always thought, well, if I put dog in the lyrics, I'd have to use frog. But maybe there's a word out there that has like an aw.
I haven't seen you because I'm sorry that you left. And then down. But it's all that sitting right out. She was hell and gone. And I'll tell you this, nothing. It's just write another song. Like now you've taken the word dog and you ended up at song. And they ain't rhyme.
That's genius. So can you tell me, is most of your music basically from experience? Because where did alcohol abuse come from?
Absolute experience. No, I'd say most songs come from experience. And even songs that I cover at a show, I cover them usually usually I choose the songs that I cover because I feel the experience in them. Somebody else has had a similar experience, and the way they've written it, I can interpret that my own way, in my own experiences, so I can sing it with my own kind of gumption. Maybe I put emphasis on different phrases than the original artist because that's the phrase that really hits me more than the phrase that really hit them. But they wrote it in a beautiful way that I was able to, still feel all the parts. Can't remember what the question was, but that's how I
Yeah, where did the song "Alcohol Abuse" come from? And
alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
So that track there, it came to me in Nashville, but it was out in a bar in Port Credit. I was playing at the Rockin' Docks one night, and the bouncer there was helping to pick up all the people had left. Most of the people had left, and the bouncer was just helping clear off bottles and glasses for probably safety and security reasons from the tables in case anything fight breaks out or whatever. But as the guy was grabbing the glasses, he had a full tray of drinks, and he's not a server, so you just kind of grab it like this. And as he's walking, the drinks all spilled, and they were full bottles. Not that anybody was going to drink them because they didn't belong to anybody, but they were full bottles or full pints as well. And the girl at the back just yelled out, "Alcohol abuse! You just spilled some good liquor." And I just kept thinking, that's going to be a hell of a song.
Well,
that's it.
People might think, oh, it's because you were an alcoholic, and basically that title is misleading, but whatever. But I was just at Rockin' Docks in the summertime with a bunch of friends, and finally sat on the roof, and really nice little area on the roof, and yeah, I saw you playing Port Credit a few times, and I'm thinking we should have him on the podcast, and then a year later, here you are.
Yeah, dude. A few moves later, and
what's that all about? What happened there that you have to keep moving, and you finally grounded yourself?
Yeah, well, it's hard when you're wanted by the law. Just kidding. I paused for a second just to see if you looked up me like, yo, what did he just say? No, I moved. My girlfriend and I, we'd been together for a little while, and we decided that we were going to move into together in September of 2020. And when that choice happened, because we were already basically living together, so we decided to get our own place and bring our family together. So we did. And the place where we moved to, they said, we want you to stay here for like 10, 15, 20 years if you want. We want to retire here. And we're like, this is perfect. We're going to make this choice and we're going to move. We wanted something concrete for our little family, her boy, me, to build a family upon some rock. And within 7 months of us moving, and in the heart of COVID, they came over drunk with a brand new kitty and a glass of wine. And they're like, we're sorry. I only make $24,000 a year, or no, a month, not $24,000 a year, $24,000 a month, crying with a glass of wine and a baby kitty. I only make $24,000 a month, and we're going to be forced to sell now our house due to COVID. I'm like, your house it went from 270 to 1.3 million. Of course you're going to sell. You don't have to lie to me that you're forced. Anyway, we were really frustrated because we were planning on living there for a while and just kind of started putting our things in that solid pattern, where you pull everything out. So anyway, we had to pack up and move again. And we were forced to find a place that was crazy expensive, over $3,000 a month.
Wow.
To rent. Dude, it's premeditated.
Mine was expensive.
Bankruptcy. It was horrible. And I was just disgusted. So anyways, we knew that we weren't going to be there for long, and we kept our eyes open. And so where we are now, this beautiful aqua space, or whatever color this is, teal, turquoise, whatever, is now our home. We've got this beautiful old farm home. It was built in 1908. There is quirks, and I mean, don't let the nice paint fool you in this room. There's no straight line in this house. Right now, we're sitting on an angle. But no one's taking it away from us, and it's going to be ours, and we can build our family here. So,
yeah, and the big speaker, and you got the whole place to yourself to play music. I can see it says Nashville there. It has a big speaker there. Oh, that's the podcast, like the piano. Look at that, all 2 pianos.
Oh yeah, that's three little things in here. There's another room with other pianos. That's my drone workstation over there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Lucky.
man.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's you.
Hey, hi, me. Hello.
Right on, right on.
That's funny. It's hilarious. Wow. So I'm glad that you're grounded and you and your girl are grounded with the children that you have, and nobody can take this away from you. I'm not sure people want to know where you live, but where in Canada are you now? If you
We're
just
up
want
in
to.
Dufferin County.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're in Dufferin County.
yeah. So
Oh,
yeah, which is basically, along Airport Road, which is beautiful. The whole area. We were on Airport Road earlier in Mono, and then basically just got further north.
you planning to do another show in Port Credit this summer?
I actually am down there every 2 weeks. I do a little show over at the Rockin' Docks on a Monday night. I do a little songwriter thing there. You should
I
come
only
on
live
down,
across from Square One, so maybe I might come down and see you.
brother. Yeah, not this Monday, like not tonight, but 7 days from now.
I'll do that. Can say
Yeah,
hi.
it'd be great to have you out, man.
Oh yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, your voice reminds me of like my favorite is Tim McGraw. That song "Live Like You Were Dying." Ever thought of covering that song?
I've several times I thought of that one. It's just such a good song. I don't know it, but I know the track. It's so good.
Oh man, to be watching you play and then you come suddenly saying, "Okay, Chris, please come up on stage and I'll be able to sing a duet with you." That would be amazing. That would be
You know
awesome.
that song? Do you know that one?
Yeah, I knew "Live Like You Were Dying." I sing it all the time.
Oh,
My favorite.
good, good.
The
Oh,
sky diving and went mountain climbing. I love that song. Yeah.
yeah, so good. Yeah. Great track. There's so many good songs.
So you're there every Monday at 7?
Yep.
Okay, I'll come
Oh,
down
no,
and visit.
every other Monday. Sorry, that's
Every
not
other
every
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, okay, I checked out.
Yeah.
Not this Monday, but the next Monday. Okay, right.
You got it.
Got it. Yeah, and then that song One of These Days is also, did that take very long for you to write?
That one there was actually written one afternoon in a little 3-hour writing session. A buddy of mine, Jason, and I. And when it was first written, it was funny because Jason's got this big kind of catcher's mitt for a hand, and it's just a huge mitt of a hand. And he's like, I think we should do it at this tempo right here. This is one of these days we've been waiting for. And I'm like, what about this is one of these days we've been waiting for.
Wow.
So pack your suitcase, it's getting late. I don't want to wait anymore. Wow, I sound like I haven't sung in a while. But anyway, you know how
I
it goes.
love it.
And he's like, well, that's a little too fast for my mitts. And I'm like, yeah, but it's cool. So that only took a short little, again, it was written like this. What are we just going to start off with like, girl, we always say someday when it comes to leaving this town. And you write some more. It's always off in the future. It never seems to come around.
It's good.
And I mean, and don't get me wrong, brother. I don't want to encourage that songs happen like this. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. And guys that are really practiced, if you could fold sheets for 4 hours, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, you would fold sheets better than the other person, guaranteed. I mean, that's just how it is. So if you wrote songs 3 times a day for 4 months, like they do in Nashville, those guys do it for years, daily. They're really good. They're like karate experts at songwriting. Somebody throws out an idea.
I like that.
What about this?
I like that
And
analogy. Yeah.
Well, it's true. They're so good at, I don't think this is going to work there. Don't worry. We'll put a little flip and a little chord change and we'll do one of these. And it's like, how do you even know to make that little chord turnaround thing? Because you've done it on other songs. You've used that trick on other songs, on other people. We just don't have it in our wheelhouse. So it is great. That's the other thing. Co-writing. Writing with someone else that knows a little bit more than you always helps. Or asking somebody to sit down and write a song with you. Maybe they're kind of just as good as you. Maybe they're like on the same page. And then at least it forces you to stay on focus, to stay in the groove of the song, and maybe to actually finish a couple of lines where you're like, that's kind of cool.
Love your attitude, my friend. Love your attitude. What has been your favorite performance on tour so far?
Wow. Favorite performance. I might say, like this last year in 2022, I actually had some pretty phenomenal performances. They were all pretty dang spectacular, like memorable for me. I would say that the ones, and I mean, the most recent, I guess, or closest to recent would have been the CNE with the ASL interpreter. We had a great run at the CNE. And the night that we specifically had her out, there was deaf folk in the audience I'd never seen before, which not that I see them all, but I was grateful to not know them. That I was like, wow, you don't know me and I don't know you, but you knew this was happening and you wanted to come. That's cool. That means the message got to you that we were having sign language and music. And the response from you was that you wanted to participate, which is what our intent was, to put it out there so that the deaf community would have something they could feel like they'd want to participate in. So I would say that performance, the band played great. The interpreter was great. The lights were great. We had a great audience out there. I think it was the first night of CNE. There was a bunch of deaf folk out there signing and watching and happy to come up afterwards for the participation. So I would say that and every big show's got highlights. We've done stuff at the Stampede and we've done stuff with Alan Jackson, and they all got beautiful things. They all have moments that you learn.
Wow.
But as the most recent, the ones with the sign language interpreter, and again, there's been a difference in the show since May of 2022. Something happened on stage. It was our first big show of that year, and I was going in with a very different intent of how I wanted to communicate with the audience, and the audience responded to that. And ever since that moment, I've felt a very specific and new connection to the audience, that every time a new show has come up, I've been like, I hope I can do it again. I hope that thing that I think I've triggered inside will happen again, so that they do the thing that I want them to do to fire me up. And it's been happening every show. So I can't quite put my finger on it, but there is something happening. Like even my bandmates have said, each show has become, this is the best one yet. Like, I don't know how it's feeling so good, but it's not just like, oh, we played amazing. It's a feeling. So whatever that is, whatever that connection is with the audience, or whatever the intent is, I know that I'm looking at the shows trying to bring in such a level of command and positivity at the same time, a gentle firmness, I'm in control. You can rest easy on this, but let me guide you through this so that you can feel like we're all together. And when I drop you off from this experience, you're going to feel rooted, and yet you've had your cup filled. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's connection. It's a connection thing. Period.
That is totally amazing. You're such a wonderful, wild guy, though. But I like it. I like your attitude. You've inspired me to really think about things and in a whole new perspective, and taking those ASL courses, and not maybe the drone thing or electronic thing, but maybe looking into learning songwriting and upgrading my voice, because I'm a tenor. But I also should maybe think about learning a different instrument, like maybe a guitar or violin or flute. I'm not sure, but could do it online. I don't know if there's any. Oh yeah, there is actually. Yeah, there's a just over there by Credit View. There's a place where they actually teach you how to sing, and also Metalworks is down there. That's where Drake usually does a lot of his recording. So just right up
Yep.
the road there's a place. Um, so, but I know I said final question, but I wanted to add this to your tour thing. Who is your who would be your most influential, greatest musician you'd love to tour with?
Hmm.
Mine would be Josh Groban, of course.
He's pretty awesome, man. Well, if you're going to say Josh Groban, maybe I'll say Andre Bocelli.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because, I mean, he would be the beauty and I would be the beast. And he would have this pretty voice and I would
Yeah.
have this one that sounds like a diesel truck. And it would be good.
That's
Because
funny, my friend.
I feel like
Love
that
it,
would,
brother. That's awesome. Yeah. It's great. Okay. Thank you very much for being on the podcast and for opening up, and you made this podcast wonderful, and you put me at ease and got me into being more you were more inspirational, and that's awesome. And thank you. I'm just going to end this. Yeah, stay there for a bit. I'm just going to end this stream. We'll talk some more. See everyone. Marshall Dane, founder of
right.
Creativity, out.
I'm for the underdog who's been held down, like the single mom that can't seem to catch a break. I'm for the little kid on the playground with a buddy knows he's had all that he can take. There's a damn good reason he's coming up swinging. He's in the out crowd. Oh, and that makes you a fighter when you're in the out crowd. You get pushed around.